New jail footage of 600 Breezy just dropped, and it's got the streets talking. Reports say the feds are pressing him with some heavy RICO charges.
What is this corrupt organization?
Things are looking real bad for Breezy right now, and the shocking details behind these charges are wild. Let's break it down. How a traffic stop became a RICO case. Imagine you're cruising through Wisconsin, probably thinking you're just another face in the crowd, when suddenly blue lights flash in your rearview mirror. For most people, this would be a minor inconvenience, maybe a speeding ticket, maybe a warning about a broken taillight. But when you're Antonio Valentino King, aka 600 Breezy, and you've been moving through the streets with the weight of your reputation and your past following you like a shadow, a simple traffic stop can become the moment when all your chickens come home to roost. When them boys in blue ran his information through their system, they hit the jackpot, and not the good kind. An active extradition warrant tied to Pennsylvania popped up on their screens like a neon sign announcing that this wasn't just any regular traffic stop. This was the moment when years of street politics, gang affiliations, and authentic hood credibility collided with the cold, calculating machinery of the federal justice system. They snatched him up right there on the spot, booked him around 7:30 a.m., and held him without bail like he was some kind of kingpin they'd been hunting for years. The very next day, August 28, 2025, brought a court appearance that would give the entire hip-hop world a preview of just how serious this situation had become. A video of this court appearance surfaced online, amplifying public interest and speculation across every platform from Twitter to TikTok, with everyone from street bloggers to mainstream media trying to figure out what kind of charges could have the feds moving this aggressively across state lines. When that judge offered Breezy a continuance, basically saying, take some time to understand what you're really up against here. His response told the whole story about a man who'd been down this road more times than he probably wanted to count. I've been in this situation before, he told that judge, waving off the offer like he was declining a second helping at dinner. Now, bro wasn't capping when he said this.
Okay, now, was this the first time in an actual penitentiary? Like, were you in jail time before? Or
yeah, that was my first time in a pen, for real, for real. To be honest, that's better than being in the county jail, bro. Like, that is like they know you're gonna be there for however long. It don't matter if it's 6 months or a year or 10 or 20 years, they know you're gonna be there. So
Breezy had been in the system a few times, and he had learned how to move within them. In fact, the last time he was in, it seemed like he was having a swell time. The comfort level he described having in prison was almost shocking to hear, like he was describing a stay at some kind of hood resort instead of maximum security.
So it's cool, you comfortable. Like, they don't want niggas in there fighting and doing all that shit. They got a TV, had cable, all type of shit. Had real food. Like, I'm on the phone all day.
This level of privilege inside wasn't just about good behavior, it was about respect, reputation, and the kind of influence that can make even correctional officers think twice about how they treat you. The daily routine he described sounded more like a college dorm than a prison cell.
Those roll is 5:30 in the morning. It's only 2 counts during the day. I'm really out. I got to like the honor level, not getting no tickets and getting no into trouble. So I'm out to 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. I'm on the phone with my bitch all day. I can call my kids whenever I want to.
The financial side of his prison experience showed how money and connections could transform even incarceration into something manageable.
Like, they had real food in there. Like, they got a debit tech card. You put $75 on there twice a week. So I'm $150 in my shit every week. Man, they selling us Tyson's pizza, like Tyson's chicken and pizzas and shit like that, cakes and ice cream, like real, like they said like steaks, they doing furloughs,
Having steady money coming in while locked up is a luxury most inmates can only dream about, and it showed the level of support system he had maintained even while facing serious charges. When you're eating Tyson's chicken and real ice cream while locked up, you're definitely not having the typical prison experience that breaks most people's spirits.
We get real food from the restaurants and shit, like 3 times a month, shit like that, once you doing good, like that. Man, that shit was nothing.
And the best part, he wasn't even in prison for that long.
So you got the 10 years, but how much time from the time you went in to the time you got out?
Oh, I did 21 months.
21 months.
Going from a decade sentence to less than 2 years served is the kind of outcome that either requires exceptional legal representation, cooperation with authorities, or both. And it's exactly the kind of leniency that makes prosecutors suspicious about what deals might have been made behind closed doors. But this arrest in 2025 represented something fundamentally different from all his previous legal troubles. This wasn't about probation violations or drug possession or even public threats. This was potentially about the feds trying to paint his entire life as participation in a criminal organization. The emergence of this arrest wasn't happening in a vacuum, but rather against the backdrop of a federal and state strategy that has increasingly targeted rappers with RICO charges, as as seen in cases like Young Thugs in Georgia. The Hood had been watching case after case where rappers who kept it real about their backgrounds found themselves fighting for their lives in federal court. From Bobby Shmurda to Young Thug to countless others, the message was becoming clear. Authenticity could be dangerous, and the very credibility that made these artists compelling to their fans could be transformed into evidence of criminal enterprise participation by ambitious prosecutors looking to make names for themselves. For 600 Breezy, whose whole career trajectory had been built on refusing to fake the funk or sanitize his image for mainstream consumption, this represented the ultimate test. That unwavering loyalty to the streets that raised him, that refusal to distance himself from the Black Disciples organization that had shaped his identity, might be the evidence that prosecutors would use to argue he was part of a criminal enterprise worthy of RICO prosecution. The timing of this arrest was particularly cruel given how Breezy had been talking about his evolution as both an artist and a person in recent interviews.
Yeah, 100%. It was just in the streets still. You know, like I had millions of views and was still in Chicago broke because, you know, the people that was around me was still in the money. Didn't know I had them. And so it was just like all I knew was 59th Street. So all I knew was like, oh, I'm 600, we outside, we gangbanging, and I'm doing this for my homies. Like,
this description of his worldview showed how completely his identity had been wrapped up in gang culture and street politics, making it nearly impossible to separate his artistic persona from his alleged criminal associations. The recognition of missed opportunities had been weighing on him heavily, as he acknowledged in candid moments about his career trajectory.
I don't got nothing else to prove. Let me really do the music because I got it. Like anybody else with this opportunity, they would have been doing way more.
The response from the Hood when Breezy's arrest was made public was swift and not entirely sympathetic. Rival rapper Lil Zay Osama jumped on social media mocking him, reposting the court appearance video with captions like, "Breezo, the streets ain't for you," and suggesting he might flip on his co-defendants. As news of the arrest spread through social media and hip-hop blogs, it became clear this wasn't just another routine legal hiccup for a rapper with a history of troubles. The sealed nature of the Pennsylvania warrant, the speculation about RICO charges, and Breezy's own apparent familiarity with the seriousness of his situation all pointed towards something far more significant and potentially life-altering than anything he'd faced before. Sitting in that Wisconsin cell, waiting to be transported to Pennsylvania to face charges that could fundamentally alter the rest of his life, 600. Breezy found himself at the center of a story that was years in the making. Blood, beef, and the Black Disciples. Let me break down the real story behind how 600 Breezy ended up in these streets facing potential RICO charges. See, Breezy's connection to the Black Disciples ain't some industry creation or fake gangbanging for clout. This is generational, institutional, deep-rooted affiliation that goes back to his DNA and the blocks that raised him. The Black Disciples organization that claimed Breezy isn't just any neighborhood crew or loose collection of homies trying to make money. The Black Disciples, originating in Chicago's South Side in the 1960s under David Barksdale, are a highly structured gang aligned with the folk nation, with hierarchies, territories, and operations that span multiple states and decades. When Breezy claims 600, he's not just repping a neighborhood. He's announcing his allegiance to a piece of this massive organization that law enforcement has been trying to dismantle for generations. What makes his situation so dangerous is how the feds have been systematically targeting his people using RICO prosecutions. Federal authorities have increasingly targeted the gang using RICO, a law enacted in 1970 to combat organized crime by prosecuting individuals for participating in a criminal enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity. Every time Breezy spoke publicly about his BD affiliation, every time he showed loyalty to his set in interviews or on social media, he was potentially creating evidence that prosecutors could later use to argue he was an active participant in what they characterize as a criminal conspiracy. The systematic dismantling of BD leadership through RICO prosecutions has been going on for years now. In July 2020, federal authorities arrested Darnell Murder McMiller, the alleged BD leader, along with 22 others in Chicago's Englewood area, alleging the BD operated as a criminal enterprise involved in gun and drug trafficking. This wasn't just about individual crimes. This was about the feds arguing that the entire organizational structure constituted a criminal enterprise, which means anyone with documented connections to that structure could potentially be swept up in similar prosecutions. But yo, it was Breezy's explosive beef with Tekashi 6ix9ine that might have provided prosecutors with the most damaging ammunition they needed to build a case against him. This wasn't just just typical rap beef or industry drama. This was a collision between real street principles and the kind of federal informant culture that has poisoned hip-hop from the inside out. The conflict started when 6ix9ine began his provocative trolling, making disparaging comments about deceased Chicago rapper King Von and OTF leader Lil Durk, while leveraging his reputation as a federal informant. For someone like Breezy, whose entire worldview is built around respect for the dead and loyalty to the homies, 6ix9ine's disrespectful antics weren't just internet trolling. They were violations of sacred principles that demanded response regardless of consequences. The street code that shaped his thinking didn't allow for ignoring such disrespect, even when responding would clearly create legal jeopardy. The February 20th, 2021 Instagram live session that captured their confrontation wasn't just entertainment. It was documentary evidence of how deep Breezy's commitment to street principles really went.
Yo, listen, you haven't nobody that
you
killed
gone.
your man.
You gone.
Your man.
And that's all I'm saying.
done.
I'm
Why
gonna go
the
to jail
nigga-
respectfully.
Yo, why the nigga still keep lost the line?
I'm gonna go to jail respectfully when I see you. Respectfully, I'm not meek, nigga. And you gotta move around with security because you a
Yo, you haven't gone to
you
jail
gotta move
ever.
around with security because you a hoe, nigga. You gotta move around with security. Real.
Every insult, every threat, every expression of contempt was being live streamed to thousands of viewers and potentially archived by law enforcement agencies looking for evidence of his mindset and intentions. The most damaging part of that live session came when his anger reached its peak and he made threats that would haunt him for years to come.
You ain't even got. You can't even. I can't talk about your dead homies because you ain't got no hood. You snitched on your dead.
Faggot.
You gon'
When he tried to clarify his statements in later interviews, the damage was already done, but his explanations revealed someone who understood the legal implications of his words, even as he struggled to maintain his street credibility.
Me handled that supposed to. But I definitely said, oh yeah, when I see you, I'm going to jail. Because even if I punch that, so assault, go to jail. Like, you feel me? I ain't like, I'ma kill you. I never said.
This attempt to walk back the murder implications while maintaining his commitment to violence showed someone trying to thread an impossible needle between legal safety and street authenticity. The consequences of those live stream threats materialized quickly and devastatingly. In March 2021, Breezy claimed that 6ix9ine reported his death threats to the police, resulting in a warrant for his arrest. The incident reinforced Breezy's narrative that 6ix9ine was a snitch who used law enforcement to target his rivals, a claim bolstered by 6ix9ine's history of cooperating with authorities in the 9 Trey case. For someone from Breezy's background, having your enemy use the police as a weapon was the ultimate violation of everything the streets had taught him about how conflicts should be resolved. The legal fallout came hard and fast. On December 3rd, 2021, 600 Breezy was arrested in Polk County, Iowa for a probation violation stemming from the threats made against 6ix9ine during the February 2021 Instagram Live. Court documents revealed that the violation was based on Breezy's statements about murdering 6ix9ine and posts showing him with guns on Instagram. The 6ix9ine beef demonstrated how Breezy's adherence to street codes often overrode more strategic considerations about legal consequences.
You a snitch. You told. The whole world know that. Nobody honors that.
Despite understanding 6ix9ine's trolling strategy, Breezy couldn't resist engaging because his principles demanded
I
it.
feel like if I play with these, don't nothing happen to me, they gon' f with me. No, you're trolling, you on the internet. They gonna get up with him one day. I ain't gonna shoot him or do nothing. I'm really gonna beat that nigga and assault charge. I'm gonna bond that shit. I actually got in trouble with my PO, my parole officer and shit like that. I guess they was getting calls about that. They basically saying I just threatened to kill somebody over the internet.
What made the situation even more complex was Breezy's suspicion about who was feeding information to authorities.
I feel like somebody from his camp found out who my PO was or whatever and called in or some shit. I don't know. Or it could have just been the internet and they synced it. And it was because it was a very viral situation. So they could have just synced it and been like, oh, this nigga tripping. Like, get him in here.
When the hammer finally dropped and he was arrested for those 6ix9ine threats, Breezy's analysis of the situation revealed his understanding of how federal informant culture had corrupted traditional street conflict resolution. When Breezy was released on February 22nd, 2022, he announced his return on Instagram, accusing 6ix9ine of snitching, as he believed the rapper's actions led to the warrant. This public accusation was about exposing what he saw as the systematic corruption of hip-hop by federal cooperation. For 600 Breezy, the 6ix9ine 6ix9ine beef represented more than just another hip-hop conflict gone sideways. It was a case study in how the collision between authentic street culture and federal prosecution strategies could create legal vulnerabilities that extended far beyond the original disagreement. The very qualities that made him a credible and compelling artist. His refusal to back down from disrespect, his loyalty to fallen soldiers, his commitment to street codes even when those codes put him in legal crosshairs, had potentially provided prosecutors with exactly the type of evidence they needed to characterize him as an active leader in a criminal enterprise worthy of RICO prosecution. And now they're closing in. The RICO trap. As 600 Breezy sits in that cell waiting to get shipped to Pennsylvania, the full scope of what he's potentially facing is some next-level nightmare scenario that goes way beyond anything he's dealt with before. This ain't about another probation violation or even serious drug charges. This is about the feds potentially trying to flip his entire life story into evidence that he's been running a criminal organization. The game has changed, and the very realness that made him respected in the streets and authentic to his fans might now be the rope they use to hang him in federal court. RICO prosecutions are straight up the government's cheat code when they want to take down what they call organized crime. RICO allows prosecutors to tie multiple crimes into a single case, targeting the gang's leadership and structure. To secure a RICO conviction, prosecutors must prove 2 or more racketeering acts within a 10-year period as part of an ongoing criminal enterprise. For a dude like Breezy, whose legal history reads like a greatest hits album of street life consequences spanning over a decade in multiple states, this framework could transform every past arrest, every probation violation, every public statement about gang loyalty into pieces of a massive conspiracy puzzle. The mathematics of federal prosecution are brutal and unforgiving, something Breezy himself had broken down when analyzing similar cases affecting people in his circle.
But it's like that's a murder for hire with a murder, like, cause I did my homework on it. It's like, if they catch you and it was like you attempted to do murder for hire and nobody got hurt, it's 10 years. If somebody got hurt, it's 20, 25 years.
His research into how federal sentencing works showed someone who understood the stakes involved in these types of prosecutions. But the real kicker, the part that transforms manageable sentences into life-ending consequences, was something he understood all too well. The emotional weight of watching people from his community get caught up in these federal cases was evident in his genuine concern for others facing similar situations.
It's like, I don't want to see that for nobody. It's like, but that suck. I hope them lawyers do what they gotta do and whatever.
If 600 Breezy gets convicted on these alleged RICO charges, he's about to experience a completely different level of incarceration than anything he's dealt with before. We ain't talking about some comfortable state bid where you can kick back and politic. Federal time, especially on RICO charges, is a whole different beast that'll test everything he thinks he knows about surviving behind the wall. The Black Disciples got serious pull in the prison system, especially in Illinois joints, through their tight organization and their connection to the Folk Nation Alliance. But here's the thing, that influence comes with major expectations and responsibilities that can trap you deeper into the lifestyle even when you're locked up.
So it was just like, you know, I tell them, shit, when you come out here, just come holler at me. Then you're like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but when I got out of jail, that really is from over there. Like, he got pictures with these niggas, but he just a nigga that's just not in the mix for real, like, so, but he wasn't on shit though, like.
But a federal RICO conviction would land him in a completely different environment. Federal joints operate with much stricter controls on gang activity than the state facilities where he did his previous time. High-profile gang leaders often get shipped to places like ADX Florence, where communication with the outside world gets severely restricted, making it much harder to maintain the type of influence he's used to having. The psychological adjustment would be brutal. The sentence lengths under RICO completely change how you approach doing time. While his longest previous sentence was that 10-year Iowa bid, RICO convictions can bring 20 years to life. When you're looking at decades instead of months, your whole mindset has to shift from countdown to survival mode. The impact on his family would be catastrophic. Breezy has talked about the importance of staying connected to his children during lockup, describing how he could maintain regular contact during his previous bids. A lengthy federal sentence would severely limit this contact during crucial years of his kids' development, potentially damaging those relationships permanently. His music career would be done.
I don't got nothing else to prove. Let me really do the music because I got it. Like anybody else with this opportunity, they would have been doing way more.
All that progress would be wiped out by a federal sentence. The music industry moves fast, and artists who disappear for years rarely come back to the same level of relevance. The asset forfeiture component could eliminate everything he's built through his career. Federal prosecutors routinely seize music royalties, real estate, vehicles, jewelry. Anything they can argue was purchased with proceeds from criminal enterprise activities. Even if he eventually gets out, he might be starting from zero financially. The legal battle itself is a marathon that could drag on for years. RICO cases are complex, involving multiple defendants, thousands of pieces of evidence, and extensive pre-trial proceedings. Young Thug's YSL case became one of the longest criminal trials in Georgia history. If Breezy decides to fight rather than take a plea, he could be sitting in county for years before even reaching trial. The pressure to cooperate represents perhaps the biggest threat to his street credibility. RICO cases are designed to create pressure for lower-level defendants to flip on higher-ranking targets in exchange for reduced sentences. For someone who's built his reputation on keeping it solid and never snitching, being presented with cooperation agreements would represent the ultimate test of his principles.
They gone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Dirk probably the only one that can walk away. If, you know what I'm saying, they really like, no, he had nothing to do with that, y'all going off of iCloud and this and that and this and that.
But when you're sitting in a cell facing life without the possibility of parole, those principles can start feeling like luxury items you can't afford. The streets are already starting to question his position. This type of public questioning creates additional stress in an already impossible situation, making cooperation seem inevitable to his critics. The prison experience for high-profile gang members on RICO charges is designed to break you down psychologically. Long periods of solitary confinement, limited contact with family, constant surveillance, and the knowledge that you might never go home again. All of that takes a toll on even the strongest individuals. Breezy has already experienced some of this pressure during his previous bids, talking about how his Vlad TV interviews got him put in solitary confinement. If talking about his experiences in interviews got him isolated, imagine what being a high-profile defendant in a federal RICO case would bring. The reality is that regardless of whether he beats these charges or gets convicted, his life has fundamentally changed. If he's acquitted, he returns to a world where his legal troubles have made him a bigger target for both law enforcement and rivals. If he's convicted, he faces the possibility of spending the rest of his life in federal prison under conditions far harsher than anything he's previously experienced. This case represents more than just another setback for one rapper. It's a cautionary tale about how the same authenticity and street credibility that builds careers in hip-hop can be weaponized by the criminal justice system to destroy them. The feds have figured out how to turn our culture against itself, using our own words and connections as evidence of criminal conspiracy. For 600 Breezy, the boy who survived the streets of Chicago and turned his experiences into music that resonated with millions, the ultimate irony would be that those same streets might be what eventually takes his freedom forever. The game has changed and the stakes have never been higher. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to watch another fascinating video like this, click on one of the boxes on your screen right now.